wife started sleepwalking 3 months after we moved into our new house, and last night I followed her into the woods where she met 7 other sleepwalkers who all looked exactly like her. We bought the house in October, a beautiful Victorian on the edge of a small town in Vermont, surrounded by dense forest that turned crimson and gold in the autumn light. Rachel was thrilled. After 5 years in a cramped city apartment, she finally had space for her art studio, a garden, room to breathe. I was happy because she was happy. That's how marriage works, right? The first time it happened, I woke to find her side of the bed empty. It was 3:33 a.m., the numbers glowing accusingly from my phone. I found her in the kitchen, standing perfectly still in front of the window, staring out at the dark trees. Ratch. She didn't respond. Her eyes were open but unseeing, her breathing slow and rhythmic. I'd heard you shouldn't wake sleepwalkers, something about shock to the system, so I gently guided her back to bed. She went willingly, docile as a child, and in the morning remembered nothing. It became a pattern. Every few nights, I'd wait to find her gone. Sometimes she'd be in the kitchen, sometimes the living room. Once I found her in the basement, standing in front of the old stone foundation wall, her palms pressed flat against the cold rock. Each time, I'd guide her back. Each time, she'd remember nothing. She thought I was joking when I told her. I've never sleepwalked in my life, she insisted over breakfast one morning. You're probably dreaming it. But I showed her the video I'd taken on my phone, her blank face staring at the basement wall, and her smile faltered. That's unsettling. Maybe I should see a doctor. The doctor said stress, new environment, subconscious adjustment. He prescribed mild sedatives. They didn't help. If anything, the sleepwalking intensified. And then it changed. She started going outside. I woke one night to the front door standing open, cold November air rushing into the house. Panic seized me. I grabbed a flashlight and ran outside in my pajamas and boots. Rachel. The forest swallowed my voice. I found her 30 feet into the trees, walking steadily along a path I'd never noticed before, her white nightgown ghostly in the moonlight. I followed, terrified she'd hurt herself on roots or rocks. But she moved with unsettling confidence, never stumbling, navigating the dark forest like she'd walked this path 1,000 times. After 10 minutes, she stopped in a small clearing I didn't know existed, and stood there. Just stood, arms at her sides, face tilted up to the sky. I approached carefully. Rachel, honey, let's go home. That's when I heard them. Footsteps. Multiple sets, coming from different directions through the trees. My flashlight beam found them emerging into the clearing. 7 figures in night clothes, all women, all walking with that same purposeful sleepwalker's gait. They formed a circle around the clearing center, Rachel among them. I started toward her, but something stopped me. The way they moved in perfect synchronization, all tilting their heads at the same angle, all breathing in the same rhythm. It felt choreographed, rehearsed, like I was watching a performance I wasn't meant to see. Then they all turned to face the center of the circle, and my flashlight beam caught their faces. My stomach dropped. They all looked like Rachel. Not identical, but similar enough to be sisters. Same bone structure, same dark hair, same petite build. 7 versions of my wife, standing in a circle in the woods at 3:33 a.m. One of them spoke, her voice flat and distant. The threshold weakens. We are called. The others repeated in perfect unison, including Rachel. The threshold weakens. We are called. They began to hum, a low vibrating sound that I felt in my chest more than heard. The air in the clearing grew heavy, oppressive, like before a thunderstorm. I couldn't move. Terror had rooted me to the spot. This wasn't sleepwalking. This was something else, something wrong on a fundamental level. The humming grew louder, the center of their circle began to sink slightly, the earth moving like something was pushing up from below. "Stop!" I shouted, breaking whatever spell held me. I ran to Rachel, grabbed her shoulders. "Wake up! Rachel, wake up!" Her eyes finally focused on me, confusion flooding her face. The moment she woke, the humming stopped. The other women turned as one to look at us, their faces blank and terrible in their similarity. Then they scattered, running back into the trees in different directions, moving with impossible speed. Rachel collapsed against me, trembling. "David? What? Where are we? Why are we in the woods?" I got her home, wrapped her in blankets, made tea neither of us drank. She had no memory of leaving the house, no memory of the other women or the ritual in the clearing. But I remembered. God help me, I couldn't stop remembering. The next day, I drove into town asking questions. At the library, an elderly woman named Mrs. Chin recognized my description of the clearing. "You found the gathering place," she said quietly, glancing around to make sure we were alone. My grandmother told me stories. This land had 7 families once, before the town formed. 7 women who claimed they heard the earth speaking. The town called them witches, drove them out. But the stories say they're still here, their daughters and granddaughters, drawn back when the threshold weakens. Threshold to what? She shook her head. Nothing good. The old families knew to keep it closed. That's what the gathering was for, originally. To maintain the seal. But something happened in the early 1900s. The families scattered, the ritual was forgotten. And now, she looked at me with genuine pity. Mrs. Chin pulled out an old ledger, ran her finger down faded entries. There were 7 births that night in this county. All girls. All to families descended from the original 7. The old power recognizes bloodline, Mr. Carver. It's calling its gatekeepers home. The twist hit me like ice water. Rachel's adoption. She'd always known she was adopted, but her birth records were sealed. Are you saying my wife is one of 7 women born the same night, all descended from these families, all being called to some kind of ritual? I'm saying the threshold has been weakening for over a century. And those 7 girls were born when it was at its thinnest. They're not gatekeepers, Mr. Carver. They're keys. And something is trying very hard to turn them. That night, I locked all the doors, hid the keys, even moved furniture to block exits. It didn't matter. At 3:33 a.m., I woke to find Rachel gone and the front door open despite the deadbolt still being locked. I ran to the clearing. All 7 women were there, standing in their circle, humming that terrible sound. But this time, the ground in the center had opened. A hole, maybe 3 feet across, descending into darkness that my flashlight couldn't penetrate. And something was climbing out. I saw a hand, pale and wrong, fingers too long, joints bending in directions joints shouldn't bend. Rachel and the others stepped closer to the hole, still humming, preparing to help whatever it was emerge fully. I did the only thing I could think of. I stepped into the circle, breaking their formation, and grabbed Rachel. "I love you," I said directly into her blank, sleeping face. "Rachel Chin Carver, I love you, and you're not doing this. Wake up. Come back to me. Please." Her eyes flickered. Some awareness returned. "David?" Her voice was small, confused, frightened. The moment she spoke her own name, her own voice, the humming faltered. The other 6 women turned toward us, and for just a moment, I saw awareness in their eyes too. Recognition. Horror at what they were doing. One by one, they woke. And the thing in the hole shrieked, a sound that wasn't quite sound, more like reality tearing. The hand withdrew. The earth shuddered and the hole collapsed in on itself, leaving only disturbed soil behind. The 7 women stood in the clearing, fully staring at each other and at the place where the hole had been. One started crying. Another fell to her knees. Rachel gripped my hand so tightly I lost circulation. We learned later that the other 6 women had been experiencing the same thing. Sleepwalking, blackouts, lost time. None of them knew about the others until that night. We formed a support group of sorts, meeting weekly in the daylight at the local coffee shop. 7 women born on the same night, all adopted, all carrying blood from families they'd never known, all nearly used as keys to open something that should have stayed closed. The sleepwalking stopped after that night. Whatever had been calling them went quiet, either defeated or simply waiting for another opportunity. We moved away from Vermont 6 months later. Fresh start, different coast, modern apartment with no forest nearby. Rachel doesn't paint Victorian houses anymore. She says they remind her of keys. Sometimes I wake at 3:33 a.m. out of habit, reaching for her side of the bed to make sure she's still there. She always is. But sometimes, in that moment between sleep and waking, I think I hear humming in the distance. 7 voices in harmony, maintaining a seal that should never have been their responsibility. We never asked to be gatekeepers. None of them did. But some inheritances are written in blood and bone, passed down through generations whether you know the stories or not. The threshold is still there, weakened but holding. And somewhere, 7 women sleep uneasily, knowing that they are the only thing standing between our world and whatever hungers on the other side. Rachel says she doesn't remember much from that night. But sometimes I catch her staring out windows at the dark, her lips moving silently, and I wonder if part of her is still standing in that circle, still humming that ancient song, still holding the door closed against things that should never come through. We don't talk about it. We've built a life of normal things, ordinary days, pretending that night was just a bad dream. But every April 7th, on their shared birthday, I know all 7 of them wake at 3:33 a.m. I know they feel the pull, hear the call, remember their purpose. And I know they choose, every time, to stay in their beds, to hold the line from a distance, to be keys that refuse to turn. That's the real horror. Not the monster trying to break through. Not the ritual or the bloodline or the sleepwalking. It's knowing that 7 ordinary women carry an extraordinary burden, that they'll carry it for the rest of their lives, and that none of them ever got to choose.